Welcome back to District Life. I'm Larry Brown Jr.
And I'm Sharifa Gregory. To kick off this episode, let's talk about weed in D.C. There are 18 states where the sale of marijuana is legal. It's lawful in D.C. to grow it, use it recreationally, and use it medically.
But you can't sell it. All around the country, states are legalizing marijuana sales, but it's a little hazy here in the district since we're not a state.
Initiative 71.
I-71.
Initiative 71.
Initiative 71.
Initiative 71.
Initiative 71.
I-71.
It is legal to use and possess, but it is illegal to sell or distribute cannabis. And so we have been unable to regulate this market. And it's an impossible situation because, just think of it's ridiculous that an individual can possess it, but they have no legal way of obtaining it. And this is just I want to say it's a situation of purgatory that the district is in because of Congress.
In 1998, D.C. residents voted to legalize medical marijuana in the district. But since we are not a state, it was not that easy. Congress can chokehold any D.C. bill by riders, and that's what happened with medical cannabis for 12 years. In 2013, when the rider was finally removed, local advocates stepped in.
The Bob Barr budget rider prevented DC from implementing medical cannabis after we voted on it in 1998. And like I said, it took 12 years to get that removed. So once that was removed, okay, we could do a new ballot initiative. And it was a year into that period that we decided, well, let's just do it. We have nothing to lose. So Alan, Nick Schiller, myself, we went to a lawyer named Joe Sandler, and we told him, we want to be able to grow at home. We want to be able to keep everything we grow. We want possession within reason to be legal. We came up with this 2-ounce rule in a public place. And that was the beginning of it all.
After working on Initiative 71, Allen decided to relaunch Capitol Hemp under the new, hopeful climate.
Before Initiative 71, it was extremely difficult running Capitol Hemp. Nomenclature was a big thing that law enforcement would use against us. In other words, someone would come in, if they used improper language, saying like bong, marijuana, or any of those kind of words that would kind of denote cannabis use. We could get in trouble, so we had to police ourselves. So when someone came and used those words, we gave them a warning. If they ended up using it again, we had to ask them to leave. I think the biggest thing right now is the transitioning into the legal market.
Well, we didn't legalize the sale. We only legalized the possession. We were not allowed to legalize the sale because the rules for ballot initiatives in DC say that the ballot initiative shall not spend any money.
We really hope that with adult use, we can become like New York. And New York now has anywhere you can smoke cigarettes, you can smoke cannabis. And they've restricted cigarettes to these certain places, so for the kids and for other, same thing should happen with cannabis. So hopefully we can move that direction. So the District of Columbia can tax and regulate, and then also the DC City Council, forge proper bill that will give legacy operators like Capitol Hemp, myself, and there's plenty of other people in the city like myself, and other people that are in the industry as much of an opportunity to get a license as people that are outside of the industry, whether it's in other states or just entrepreneurs with a lot of money that aren't necessarily in the DC world. I want to make sure that we get our due, licensing.
We're in legalization 2.0. We're in this new era where it's legal, but we're trying to figure out how to make it legal and just. Chairman Mendelson recently had an amazing hearing, and he does have a pretty good bill for full legalization. We like the bill overall, but we want a major change. We want to have a cottage industry. We want people to be able to legally sell their homegrown cannabis.
The bill that I introduced does is to, among other, well, obviously it's about regulating the sale and distribution of marijuana in the district, but it requires a license to be able to grow, sell, or distribute cannabis. It requires that 50% of the licenses in each license category be set aside for social equity applicants. Social equity applicants are defined as residents who have resided at least 5 of the preceding 10 years in a disproportionately impacted area, which means an area that's either very low income or an area where there's been a high incidence of marijuana-related arrests.
For Chairman Mendelson's bill to pass into law, Congress has to remove the rider so D.C. can pursue the democratic process and commit to what the voters have voted on in 2014. And since D.C. is not a state and Congress has a say over the city's laws, the future of marijuana in the district will have to be a joint decision.
A joint decision.
A joint decision.
That's kind of catchy. One thing that we all can agree on is Go-Go is the soundtrack of Washington, D.C. So many people around the Beltway start to beat their feet when they hear that bounce beat. Here's a sample of the sounds from activist and artist Justin Yadida Johnson.
What inspired me to start Mochella is when I started realizing what was going on in the city and how the culture was starting to, the pride behind the culture was starting to diminish. So that's what drew me to start mobilizing with Mochella. I led a protest in front of the White House for 180-something nights, pretty much speaking out against the corruption in federal politics. The protest was very theatrical. You know, it wasn't like your typical call and response or like with bullhorns or whatever, you know, people outside chanting. We actually uplifted these methods of, you know, using music and all these things to show our dissent. And I noticed how music was the glue and how it brought people together no matter what you look like. I noticed how disenfranchised my community was with politics and how I needed to use the culture, pop culture and music to engage them and motivate them essentially. The power of go-go music is unfathomable, which is what I've always known just through my experience in the go-go world and the thought that I have when I go out of town, like telling someone like, yo, you will never understand go-go until you experience it. I don't see the culture being displayed a lot throughout the city or as it once was. I see it more commemorated with murals. So it's just being sold as like these certain neighborhoods or spaces, but you don't really see the actual culture there. So that's why I feel like Mochella is so unique. DC always been a very prideful place. I always had very special indigenous people, you know what I mean? It's very, natives very special. So I'm here to update politics essentially. I think I've been a huge catalyst for more of the community paying attention to what's going on in the city. Like I say, anything possible, man, yada yada for May 2022.
DC has a history at every turn, including a site that's located in Rock Creek Park. Here's a closer look at Pierce Mill, a hand-crank mill that's been fully functional for decades.
This is a really exceptional historic site, one of the oldest buildings in the city. I got interested in this because I'm really fascinated by old buildings and water and hydropower, and so this was a wonderful project to join many years ago, and I've really enjoyed it. The family that began this operation, so to speak, the Pierces, they were Quakers from the Philadelphia region, and they came down here and bought land just about the time of the American Revolution, before Washington was actually created as the capital. In fact, this mill lasted in operation for more than 100 years.
I was a park ranger here, assigned to this area to do tours, and every once in a while we'd have a guest miller, and I would just watch them do that. So they said, how'd you like to be the miller? And I went, sure, I'll be the miller. So that's how it started. I've been running the mill for about 9 years now. We run it for school groups to come, little ones, and up to about 4th, 5th grade, to show simple machinery, the power of water and gravity. Today we are milling corn into cornmeal. We do donate the cornmeal to an animal farm, a working 18th century animal farm down in Accokeek, Maryland. And it's great to see the families come in. Everybody leaves with cornmeal on their face or their shirt or something because everybody likes to get in the cornmeal. It's just a lot of fun for the kids.
During 1977 through 79, they actually were making flour here in the mill, and they would send that flour to a local bakery in Rockville, Maryland. It would come back to our Safeway and Giant supermarkets as Rock Creek bread. That only lasted about 2 years between 1977 and 1979. They had a rye bread, a wheat bread, and I believe a barley bread too. The building behind me is the Pierce Carriage House. There were 3 structures similar to that one on the property, but this is the only one that's left. The Pierce family's house was behind me up around the road back there near the Czech embassy. That's where the Pierce family lived. And that building is now owned by the People's Republic of China.
Have been interpreting the mill as both a historic site but also as a important example of agriculture and renewable agriculture, sustainable agriculture, and we're growing apples and pears here as a demonstration of horticulture, and we hope that we are going to be producing apples someday to actually make some apple pie with our flour. You know, we tend to get anywhere from 10 to 15,000 people a year visiting the mill. It's one of the more popular historic sites outside of the downtown, historic core of the city.
I enjoy the park so much. It's like a jewel in the middle of the city. It's just a wonderful place, and I encourage people to come visit the park, park your car, get off your bicycles, and get up in the hills and walk around on some of these trails to really get a sense of the wonder of Rock Creek Park.
Let's hear more about DC's history from a historian herself.
I recently caught up with Jane Levy, a DC historian who helped organize the Neighborhood Heritage Trails program that explores DC's local history. Jane Levy's joining us here on District Live today of the DC History Center, but previously, Jane was with Cultural Tourism DC, where you and your colleagues, Jane, put together 17 walking tours, self-guided tours of our nation's capital. Thank you for your hard work, and tell us about what that was like.
Well, thank you for having me come talk about this. The work on the DC Neighborhood Heritage Trails was probably the most joyful work I've ever done. Neighborhoods came to us and they said, we want to have a heritage trail in our neighborhood. And we worked with neighborhoods to create the trails. We did not come in and impose them on anybody. We didn't choose the neighborhoods in particular. We just waited for people to come to us. Now, we did choose the first trail, and that was the one that we did for U Street. But after that, the neighborhoods came to us.
One of my very favorite trails is the one on U Street, walking up and down, doing the Black Broadway tour and those things. So many different messages and so many different things to see beyond the monuments, beyond the historical buildings. And one of the messages I recall with the marketing was see Washington beyond the monuments. Why was that so important in really drawing the people out while walking and learning?
Well, that was the whole reason to do the heritage trails. When we started the program, which was in the late 90s, we had something like 20 million visitors every year coming to DC. And what did they do? They went to the mall, they went to the Capitol, they went to the Smithsonian, and they bought a gift and tax-free gift shop there, got a hot dog from a vendor. Don't get me wrong, love the vendors. But then they went home and they didn't know there was more to the city. So the whole reason Cultural Tourism DC got started was to help all of those tourists find the rest of Washington. And why was that so important? Well, for one thing, it was important for economic development. You have all of these tourists with all this money coming to DC, they should spend some of it in our neighborhood businesses, right?
Absolutely.
And then the other thing that was really important to us as historians was that we knew in the late 90s that the city was changing pretty fast. Of course, we've seen a lot of change since then. And we wanted to capture the history before it went away.
Tell me about that process of really capturing that history and really leaning into the story of these neighborhoods. There's so many neighborhoods and so many different nuances that come out in that kind of process. Take us through the process of narrowing that down and what else you might have uncovered during your research.
Well, the basis for the neighborhood work was community meetings. We would be in touch with community leaders. For example, there were community leaders in the Brightwood neighborhood, and they were the ones who put out the word that we wanted to do the project with them. They brought in everybody who could possibly be interested. And then we spent a year asking people for their stories. And the question was simple: what is the story that you want to tell a visitor to your neighborhood? And then we had to figure out, where would you tell that story? Because a walking tour, is a series of signs on street corners, and you have to have a story to talk about that's relevant to that spot. So that was it. We asked people, we got fabulous stories from people. We got families who had been in Washington for 7 generations. We got people who had just moved in the week before, but they wanted to learn their history, and everything in between. And we learned so much in the process. So we took those stories after a year, and then, because we're historians, we did more research and we checked the facts like you do, and we found the pictures to illustrate the stories, and that's how we put them together.
All right, before we wrap, please tell me, if you were to go outside right now and you need a breath of fresh air, but you want to take it a step further and do a tour, you've done them all, you helped to plan those 17. What's the one that you would return to today?
Oh, goodness. Can I make it 2?
You can, yes.
You're asking me to pick my favorite child here.
See, I didn't say favorite. I said for today. It's all about the mood, a vibe.
It's about the mood. I think I would want to go to Anacostia because the stories in Anacostia are not all that well known around the city. So I love going to Anacostia and revisiting those stories. And for the sheer beauty of what you might see, I have an odd choice, which is the Federal Triangle Heritage Trail. Because the Federal Triangle buildings actually have a lot of architectural and artistic beauty to them. So that's my 2.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jane, for the tips and your knowledge, as well as what you did to help tell the story of Washington, D.C. as we travel throughout our various neighborhoods. For everyone here at District Life, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
D.C. has so much history that we can all explore, learn about, and preserve.
Yeah, Larry. But we also need to recognize the ugly parts of history, like segregation, that are sadly still part of our present. In this Black Girl Magic story, we hear about one woman's lived experience of racism then and now.
Hi, my name is Julie Smith, and I live in Olney, Maryland, and I'm an artist. My life growing up as a Black girl, growing into a Black woman in this culture, and at the time that I did was very interesting, especially when you grow up Black, but you are not, you are a racially ambiguous Black person. In other words, someone who can be mistaken for other ethnic groups, which I often have been. And it really was literally like walking a fence. Growing up in New Orleans was different because it's a city with a large, at that time, a large Creole population, and I'm Creole. So, you know, we didn't consider ourselves so different. But when my family left New Orleans and moved to Atlanta when I was 14, and then I went to a newly integrated, predominantly white school, it was hell. It was literally hell. I mean, many days during that school year, I called my mother to come and get me because I was afraid I was going to be killed. It was that threatening. I would walk into class like everyone else and choose a desk, and every kid around me would get up and move to another desk so that I would be by myself, and the teachers allowed it. And if I was lucky, that's how it would stay for the rest of the class. But if I wasn't lucky, then every bad boy in the class would come and sit around me and harass me the entire class. Towards the end of the year, the white kids began to notice that we black kids listened to way better music and were way better dancers than they were. And they wanted what we had. And so they sought us out to teach them how to dance. And it was a spark that took down the wall that racism puts between people, because suddenly they saw us as people and we saw them as people, because we wanted nothing to do with them either. One of my pet peeves is white people to say to me, "I'm not a racist." And I just, as of late, in the last few years, my response to them is, I know you don't think you are a racist, but you support racist policies. You vote racist people into government. You have to be anti-racist. For anything to change in this country, white people are going to have to act like when they hear a racist comment that this person is talking smack about their mother or their sister. We need to be anti-racist, not just racist and still support racist policies. Sometimes I feel like the placement of black people in our society is fake and forced. There's still a great deal of tokenism and lack of appreciation for people for their real abilities and what they really bring. It's just that we're not in a colorblind society, and so there are good and bad efforts at placing black people in society, and I wish we had more control over that placement ourselves. To me, Black Girl Magic is the strength that we've created for ourselves, that we've built within ourselves to overcome adversity, which is something that we face in a different way to black men who are much more physically threatened than black women are with death, as opposed to, abuse. Black women will face that, but that I am black and you are black, so much the better for us, because we are the people of the world. We were the first people here. We aren't going anywhere, and we just have the power to move our own selves and create our own world. Everyone else just has to come along.
Imagine a beloved community, a world where relationships are based on respect and acceptance. Conflicts end in reconciliation, and everyone is safe, cared for, and able to realize their unique potential. You won't have to look much further than this segment.
The after-school program today here at Ferdinand T. Day, we are a weekly peace club that comes in and does peace circles with the kids to help them do three things. Experience what does peace feel like, to learn a tool or a practice that they can use on the playground, in their classroom, and at home, and to actually practice it. So today we were focusing on naming emotions and saying, when have I felt sad, happy, mad, or frustrated? And when I get that way, what do I do with those emotions? So we've developed the peace stations, we call them, so that the kids can travel from one station to the other and have an opportunity to put it on paper, to express themselves, and then to think about their situations.
I helped lead the station where there's a circle where we discuss different ways to solve different conflicts nonviolently, whether that be through sharing or taking turns, and we really just kind of worked out some of the real conflicts that the students have at school.
LFFP is a very hands-on, I say we create like a peace laboratory so that we're not just asking them to be kind or to stop bullying, but how to care for one another. Today, what warmed my heart is one of the kids was able to integrate the tool of Stop, Think, and Act when I was sharing the story about Anand's anger. And Anand got very, very angry, and so right away the little boy said, "Oh, he didn't stop and think, Miss MJ. He just started action." And I said, "Wow, you remembered the tool." We're trying to normalize peace education as something like math and science and history, that having peace from within will help me be a better student.
I want to go into counseling, and I'm really interested in working in schools. I've definitely, something that we talk about a lot at LFFP is peace begins with me, and you can't really teach peace unless you have peace within yourself. So this experience has been very reflective.
My dream is that we have peace education throughout the DMV area and all around the world. So love to hear from anybody that wants to be on the peace team and help plant seeds of peace wherever we are.
In season 1 of District Life, we learned it's illegal to dance within the Jefferson Memorial. And if you live in Maryland, you'd better not go through your husband's pockets while he's sleeping, because that too is against the law.
Well, I'm certainly glad we're bringing back the segment, Is It a Law or Is It a Lie? Since I'm about to be a newlywed, I need to learn about all applicable laws and the lies in this segment of Where in the District.
Oh, hello there, and welcome to another segment of Where in the District. And as you can see, we're out here at the Supreme Court, and I feel like it's the perfect time to do Is It a Law or Is It a Lie? You guys really enjoyed it, so we're gonna do it again. See what we can get. All right. I got some interesting laws, very interesting laws. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go ask some people some questions. Off I go. All right. First question. It's against the law to have sex with the lights on in Virginia. Law or lie?
I'm a Virginia resident as of recently.
Oh, okay.
Don't know about that question, but...
With the lights on in your house?
Law or lie?
Law.
You said that fast.
I think it's a law.
And very confident. How did you come to this conclusion so fast? What is the...
Virginia's a weird state.
Law.
Law.
With lights on?
Yes.
I hope it's not a law. Lie?
I hope that's a lie.
It is a real law. How do they regulate that?
They must knock on doors.
Like, we see the lights on and this is some interesting positions. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
Wow, okay. Note to self, do not move to Virginia.
Next up. Santa Claus may not be used to sell alcohol in DC. Law or lie?
That's probably a law.
I would say that's a law, definitely.
Law. That sounds like a law.
That's a stretch. I'm gonna say lie.
You know what? It's a law.
Wait, really? Even advertising?
You cannot use Santa Claus to sell alcohol, nor can you use the Easter Bunny.
Because the kids, you can't, come on, you can't be selling liquor to kids.
In Maryland, renters are allowed to have clotheslines despite HOA or landlords. So it means you don't have to use the dryer, so you can save on electricity.
I thought HOAs were they're the association that regulates that stuff. Yeah, so wouldn't they regulate that?
So
lie.
Lie.
I gotta think that is a law.
I'm gonna go with yeah.
Yes, it is. It's a law. It's a law. Yeah, it is a law. In Caroline County, Maryland, you can pretend to tell the future and face 0 consequences. Law or lie?
I'm gonna say that's a law for the fortune tellers. Let them have their business.
Let's just go with law.
Law. They shouldn't face any consequence. Anyone who's going to visit them should just know that they could be lying, you know?
Okay, so we'll say law.
We'll say law.
It's a lie?
It's a lie.
I was
right.
All right. I mean, I'm kind of cool with that.
Me too, because I feel like if you're going to lie about someone's future.
Yeah, you're messing with people. Yeah.
It's against the law to tickle a woman, but men, however, may be tickled in Virginia. Law or lie? This is Virginia. You need me to read it again?
That's probably one of those crazy old laws. Yeah, I'm gonna say that's a law.
Lie.
I'm gonna say lie.
That's a lie.
Oh.
I'm gonna say law.
It is.
Hell yeah. You did it.
I'm happy to be Canadian. Okay.
I knew it. I knew she was going to be like, this is a strange place. Okay. You can legally own a skunk in Virginia as a pet. Law or lie?
Law.
I think it's a law because what if you have like the paperwork? Like there has to be.
Yeah, like an emotional support skunk.
No, not an emotional support. But like,
Lie?
That sounds like a law.
Law. No. Yes. Law/lie.
So see what had happened was, I'm assuming that people had lots of skunks before they had to make it a law that you couldn't have skunks as pet. Because why would you make it a law that you can't have a skunk as a pet if a bunch of people wasn't walking around?
It was
with a
outrageous,
leash?
I assume.
doesn't that sound crazy?
And Virginia was like, you've gone too far. That's a step over. No.
Yeah, I live in Florida, and one of my friends actually had a skunk.
Really? How was that like?
He wasn't a great friend, but
It's possible to get a parking ticket for parking in your own driveway in DC. Law or lie?
That sounds true.
Law.
Oh, that's definitely true. Somebody's done. They probably do that to people.
That sounds like a law, actually.
Law.
Okay, we'll say like law.
Law.
It is a law.
You get parking tickets for everything in DC.
What do? We get out and have everyone read the signs out loud. Can you park here? Permit 6, permit 1, 4 to 5. What time is it now? How much time do we have? Okay, 2 hours. Boom. All right, this one is not a law or a lie. I just want you to define it.
Oh dear.
What is the Crown Act?
I would think something like you can't hold a royal title or something like that in the U.S., but
I will take a guess that you're not allowed to have hair in the shape of a crown. I don't know what that is.
Race-based hair discrimination. Yes. Wait, what? People actually do that?
And essentially what it means is you cannot discriminate against someone based upon their natural hair, how it grows out of their head.
Where you can't make a law or like rules in work for people's style of hair or anything like that, right?
It's outlawing discrimination based on ethnic or like natural hair.
Boom.
A law to discriminate against natural hair styles in the workplace. Am I close?
In general.
In general.
So you cannot discriminate against natural hair.
Let's go.
In general.
All right.
Well, what an interesting day, guys. Really, really interesting. Virginia, I think it's best that you all do your things in the dark, including the skunks. Do that in the dark as well. And a lot of people learned a lot about the Crown Act. That's like really great that we, educated some folks, and some folks was like, oh no, I know what that is. So seems to be, happening. Things are happening. People are learning. I think that's great. Back to you in the studio.
Those are some crazy laws.
Super crazy.
Duly noted. And it's a great thing that I don't live in Virginia because I would have to have some hard conversations with my fiance.
A hard conversation? Wait a second, you're saying too much now, Sharifa. Listen, we better say bye-bye. We'll see you next time, everybody.
Bye.